Hello and good day, everyone. My name is Omar Davis, and welcome back to the MeTime web series, where we talk about things that are dealing with wellness, your time, how you take care of yourself, and really integrating that whole concept of the work-life balance. Because right now, as we know, there is no balance. There's full integration. So the reason we created this show was to give you tips, tools from people not only in the profession of health and wellness, but also people who are executives and sometimes your leads, and showing how a lot of these people are moving into the mindset of wellness, self-care, and how that actually helps you with not only creativity, productivity, but also optimizes your time. So today's guest is going to be super cool. I personally have worked with this gentleman in the past. He's doing some really cool things in his industry of, well, in the industry of mental health and wellness. And, being inspired by someone who is leading the way is always cool because, at the same time, it's like one of those things where the person that's doing something amazing and you respect and admire them, and you get to watch that growth. And so watching someone move into their excellence is just a really beautiful thing to do and to see. And ever since I've known this gentleman by the name of Pervis Taylor, who we're going to bring in, I've been watching him soar to his excellence. Pervis is on his second book, actually. Say hello, Pervis. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, brother, how are you? Thank you for that kind introduction. That was beautiful.
I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you. So it was only from the heart. So rather than me telling people all the wonderful things you do, can you just give us a taste of who Pervis is, what you do, and maybe those two books you got
Sure,
there?
sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever we are. I am Pervis Taylor III. I am an award-winning celebrity life coach, speaker, guest lecturer, mental health advocate, wellness practitioner, and author of the two books, Survival Mode and Heal Forward. Both books are centered around Black men's mental health.
Wow. Wow. And I mean, we need that. We need more books like that, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful not only for you putting together these books and really like putting yourself out there, because what a lot of people don't realize is whenever you're a man of color, for one, and you do something so radical like this, and then you put it out into the world,
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there to for a lot of scrutiny, because that's not normal.
Yeah.
It's not. A lot of people see it as it's something that's really under witnessed with our community, for one, to see a Black male therapist,
Yeah.
but even in the vicinity of therapy, like
Yeah.
you're like a very small percentile. So I'm so grateful for this. We need more men who are therapists, who are men of color. And with that said, I think we're just going to jump right into it, because there's so much that we have to talk about, and I know there's so
Yes.
much some good information that you're going to give people. So first
Yeah.
things first, you are a entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
like we've specifically had on people who have been in, like, directly in the corporate world,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious, because this is a pivot for some of the people that are watching.
Mhm.
What is the daily role for someone like yourself as an entrepreneur?
Well, that varies. It's never like,
Mhm.
and I think that's the fun part, but also not the fun part. Cause like knowing what's gonna come today is like that's always cool. But mine's varies. I could be doing a professional development at a school, I could be doing a professional development at a corporation, I could have a
Mm.
client, I could be doing an interview, I could be traveling to do a PD or a talk or give a lecture. So it's like it just varies. It varies a
Yeah.
lot.
So okay. Well, with that said, that sounds like, I mean, for one, you're wearing a lot of different hats, but under the same umbrella, because
Yeah.
you can't come to schools and talk the same way that you speak to adults, correct? I mean,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. And
Well,
so how do you
it's
even
I,
go? No, no, no,
I was
please, no,
I was
please go
I was
ahead.
gonna I was gonna say, it's not that much difference, honestly.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like we're all looking for that nurturing, we're all looking to figure it out, right?
Mm,
And I think that's the
yeah,
commonality. So it's not that much
yeah,
different.
yeah. I agree with that. 100%. I find that from my experience, the just changing the words a little bit but still giving the same
Yeah.
energy and the same like empathy aspect goes a really long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, so with that, let's go ahead and like in a typical day, whenever let's say you're getting ready to maybe take a client, like how do you prep for
Okay.
that? How do you prep to get into that space?
Whew. Um, I just pray. I just pray because I don't, like I don't want it to be about me. I want to be the vessel.
Mm,
And I try to remember the last session, and I'm always asking them, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of this session? You know what I mean? So I'm always thinking, I have notes and things like that, but I have a really good memory as it pertains to my clients. So I kind of remember every single detail. So like I spent a lot of times like, okay, so the last time we spoke, this is what they wanted in the session. I need to lead with that they get what they wanted. So it's just praying and just doing
yeah,
recall,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
majority of my clients. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about in a day where you're going to a corporation? Like, how do you prep for that?
Um, I do a lot of practicing, believe it or not. Even though it feels like it's just like coming off the dome, I do a lot of practicing around it because I think in a corporate setting, I don't want to be so didactic. Like I want to
Mm,
be,
mm,
you know what I mean? Like I want to be more fluid, and I want to feel, and I want them to not feel like they're in that environment per se.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. Completely, completely. Yeah. No, I feel you. That's actually one of the benefits of having a wellness program. Whenever it does have to do with focusing on the concept of mental health and
Yeah,
emotional intelligence and empathy,
yeah, yeah.
because it allows for the room to come with a different mindset. And
Which is
I've learned
needed,
my
which they
lesson
have to
all the
have.
yeah.
Which
No,
what
you
they
have to.
which is it, you have to do that. And so like I literally think about experiential exercises. I think about immersive experiences. I'm thinking about icebreakers that
Mhm.
involve
Yep.
movement. And you know
Yep.
what I mean? You can't be seated for these icebreakers. So I'm thinking about what is something that's creative that I can come up with that is
Hmm.
going to, get the ball rolling. Because that's indicative of how the session is going to go. If how the icebreaker goes is
Completely.
usually indicative of how the session is going to go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, that has been icebreakers changed the way that I did things specifically because when I came into a space and I was being like really corporate, it just reflected the crap that they didn't want to listen to. Like it only
Exactly.
like it was like a meeting. It was like, oh God, here goes this corporate BS that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not even that it's BS. It's just more of the fact that how it's presented. So whenever we decided to be more, like you said, immersive in the body and the sound into the
Uh-huh.
escaping of that corporate box and structure,
Yeah.
like we've had so many breakthroughs in those sessions and within the group.
And also too, like you being your authentic self, right, is probably going to be
Yeah.
countercultural to what corporate
Yeah.
uh expects us to be, or how, you know what I mean, how the workers are supposed to be. So like us just coming in there, like I come in there, I don't wear a suit. I
Yeah.
come in there in t-shirt and jeans. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm look
Throwing them
I
off.
look
They're like, whoa,
presentable.
whoa.
I look presentable, obviously, but like I try not to, I try to be my most authentic self, which is, which is countercultural.
Yeah, no, completely. It 100% is countercultural. And
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I like fashion. I dress super fly. So
You
whenever
do.
I would
You
walk
do.
into, well, thank you, brother. Whenever I would walk into a corporate space, people would be looking at me like, this is the guy that's going to be, why does he look like us and like the people that work here? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
did you expect me to come super buttoned up or with a coat, a white coat and my little stethoscope to tell you about yourself, or maybe with a little pencil in
Yeah.
my ear and some glasses? It's like, what is mental health supposed to look like? And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because that's a real thing. And sometimes you break people's guard down whenever they see you in that authentication, and it even
Absolutely.
gives them the privilege to then be that themselves. So I love that.
Yeah.
As we know, right now, in all this COVID stuff
Yeah.
that is happening within our world,
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did it impact you and your family, and what type of adjustments did you find that you had to make during this time?
So I tell you the biggest impact that it's had on me personally and professionally is I love being around people. and I
Mhm.
love being present, right? Doing this work in person. And so giving a keynote speech virtually, doing a workshop virtually, that that didn't work for me. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm still not cool with it 2 years in. You know what I mean? And and so like I feel like I'm grieved because I feel like the impact, that intersubjective field between us and the audience, right, is not the same as it is virtually. You know what I mean? It's not the
Yeah.
same as it is in
No, I
person,
agree.
right? You know what I'm
No,
saying? So it's
completely.
like that part really, really hurt me because I love people. And so I'm an extrovert. So people energize me. So like being away from people and seeing people on a screen, it doesn't bode well with my soul, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I've learned to make the adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the adjustment was necessary for myself. I went through it at the beginning, and the community was probably the most detrimental. And I actually had to process because, during this whole time, I moved away as well from my community.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
came to a space where I was completely isolated. And even though I had people and family to the new location that I met, it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the
It
same
was it
support.
was
It
it
wasn't
was
the
more
same.
compounded. It was more complex because you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Yeah.
exactly. And so moving away, I'm not going to front. I had like 3 months where I was losing it. I was emotionally like, I was just so sensitive because I wasn't aware in the moment that I was longing for my community,
Hmm.
and that I was having like a bunch of I was having the viewpoint of looking at my family that's here and not being tight with them in the way that I would love to be,
Hmm.
and missing the people that I am so tight with and have built with. So those two energies were coming together, and life was going still. I still have to run the business. I still have to keep shit together. And
Yeah.
so I ended up in around like this, like close to December, not this year, but of 2020,
Uh-huh.
I lost it. Like I had to like tell Omar to like, yo, what's popping? Are you
Yeah.
okay? Like
Yeah.
you good? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not 2020, 2021. Jesus,
Yeah.
what year is it? I'm so confused with the years now. I don't even know what time it is.
We're in
Anyways, right
2022,
after
brother.
I moved, exactly, right
Yeah.
after I moved, I
Yeah.
was distraught and I had to take myself through the process of grieving because I was
Hmm.
really hurt. And
Hmm.
it was super beneficial for me because it allowed me to then find new avenues and new ways to get that fulfillment from my community, especially with this virtual stuff. I feel you being in person is such a different feeling, and
It's so different, man.
I
And I
like
feel so
hugging
bad. I
people.
do
Yeah,
too. I do too. Like I love, I have a program that's with the CUNY system, and it happened like our last three sessions were with this particular group of young men of color that were graduating, and so we wanted to like hug them, like, "Yo, you about to graduate and you completed our program." You know what I mean? And it was like
yeah,
that right there hurt me so badly because I wanted to hug
yeah,
them because they were so faithful, and you saw the
yeah,
progression, you saw them expand, and you saw them grow, and it was like that hurt.
yeah. And even the validation from their perspective,
Yeah,
the validation that they receive from us is like it's a go get 'em pass. So like
it's
I just
a high.
realized, yeah, I just realized the impact of community validation from my own perspective. Like I need community validation, and I know that that's actually one of the pillars of human consciousness in life. Like we need to be respected and understood and heard by our community, and our community then needs to reflect back to us like, good job, my dude, or
Yeah,
that's not the way to go. Like that's
yeah,
something you may want to check yourself on that one. Like so you need that balance. And so I'm
absolutely.
I'm grateful that we have, even though this is a time of seemingly isolation,
Yeah,
we have been able to still be virtual and still find ways to communicate, because you can't stop us from that. That's the one thing that I realize now. It's like people going get in touch with each other. People are going to make
yeah.
time to spend with each other no matter what, because we've actually said this pretty much on every show right now. The worst thing they can do to you in prison is isolation, solitary confinement.
Solitary
It's like,
confinement. Yeah, that'll kill
if
you
that's the
more than
worst,
the yeah, that'll kill you more than the lethal injection.
yeah, Exactly. And so from that point, it just really made me see the holistic, aspect of what it is. And
Hmm.
actually, that self-care is not just one thing too, right? And that's kind of
Right.
like where we are in this phase where we're starting to realize as a culture now that all of our distractions are gone because COVID hit
Mhm.
us real hard, and it's like, oh no, you can't
Yeah.
go drink, you can't go do that, you can't go watch those shows and listen to that music you would normally go out to. And us as New Yorkers, we can get distracted anywhere in the city. We can end up in any
Absolutely.
space, and so all that was broken down. And then you
Yeah.
had yourself. And
Yeah.
so with that said, like I had to find new routines and things to do for me during COVID. So I'm
Hmm.
curious to know, like, what does self care look like for you now? Like, I know previously it was completely different from that.
It was, but then it wasn't. Um,
Yeah,
always the therapist, always going to see the therapist,
yeah,
always praying, always having community. Those things, exercising, all those things were the same. Um, but what's the new self care now for me is even though I did it before, but I've never been a TV person. I've never been into, I watch TV every now and then, but now it's like I gotta watch my shows. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like I have my certain, like now I'm into the new Sex in the City, and I never watched Sex in the City the first time it came out. So you know what I mean? Like it's like every Thursday I know
yeah,
that the new
yeah,
episode is gonna drop. So like entertainment more so than ever. Like even though I kind of come from that background, entertainment and things like that, but
yeah,
entertainment has been a new thing for me. That wasn't as prevalent before because I always was out and about doing things, right, and never thought about it. But just being more conscious and really tuned into art more has
yeah.
been a huge form of self care, and also too just being just completely transparent about where I am with not with my community, with my therapist, um, my family, just that those things are I'm
Yeah,
a little bit more. I've always been very transparent, but I'm even more transparent. And I have to be that because I don't like the feeling of carrying secrets or the feeling of that turning into shame or whatever you know what I
yep,
mean, because we have a
yep,
secret, it turns
exactly.
into shame. That's really what it's the power
Yeah,
of keeping the
completely.
secret that really holds power over you. And so like that's right there, that's the thing that's really changed for me. But other than that, like I
Yeah.
mean, I've always been attuned to like, all right, Purvis, you start the trip, you need to remove that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. No, the most important part of self-care is self-accountability. And I think that that is one of the reasons why so many people in our culture and in our nation have been 100% against looking at therapy or looking at mindfulness. It's always been like, you know what, let's just blame that. It's that. It's this reason. It's over there. It's those people. It's that thing. And then
Yes.
whenever you actually go to therapy and you actually start witnessing yourself, you have to make a firm decision like, yo, I did that though. Or
and
I'm
and
doing that too, right?
and I love that you said self accountability, and I also say really self care is really self knowing,
Mm,
right? Because so many
mm,
people don't even know themselves. So how can you be accountable? You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? So it was like for me, because I know myself pretty well. I don't say I know myself fully, right? Because that's always a journey,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's the
Always a
journey,
journey.
right?
Yeah.
Of knowing more aspects of myself. But I know myself well enough to know when I'm tripping, to know when I'm wilding, when I'm being a victim, when I'm, you know what I mean? Like when I'm
Yeah,
depressed,
yeah,
when I'm
yeah.
sad. Like I,
Yeah.
I know myself that enough, right? And then I can get
Yeah.
to a space of self-agency and self-accountability, which is
Yeah.
needed, right? And so like you
Hmm.
hit the nail on the head. Self-care is self-accountability and self-knowledge.
Yeah. True. That's literally one of the whole bases of our of Crash Bell in itself. I had a eighth grade student come up to me after we went through a course, and it was like 8 week semester, regular semester. He's like, so I noticed that towards the end of the course, you kept using the term accountability a lot. And I went to go look up that
Mm.
word because I didn't know what accountability was. This is a little Brooklyn kid. And he's like,
Mhm.
so pretty much you just taught us about our body so that we can be accountable for the things that we do. because it's
With it.
affecting us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, word up. That's exactly what I did. And no, we're not selling that to y'all. Like, we're going to teach you to be accountable today by teaching your body. But I just had to recognize this young man. I told him, I was like, yo, your critical thinking skills are off the chain, my dude. I was
Yeah.
like, you are the only student out of all 35 of y'all that took this course, comprehended the things that I led you up to, but then you took it into yourself. And then you said, yo, I need to be accountable because it's hurting me. It's making my
Absolutely.
body. It's making my. And so it hit him. And I saw it too, because I even witnessed like how this kid decided to interact differently. Whenever
Yeah.
he got upset still, but instead of doing what he almost did the first time I met him, which is fight 5 girls that was about to get into him, I was like, you do not want to fight those girls, bro. He was like,
Right.
you don't know me. I was like, those girls they from
They
Brooklyn too,
go.
homie.
They're
Like,
from
don't,
Brooklyn too. Like that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, don't stop
Yeah.
it. And so to see the change from the beginning or the middle of the semester towards the end and see how he interacted, I was filled with so much joy, Pervis. Like, I felt all the
Yeah.
endorphins running through my body, and it was beautiful. And to see how the act of accountability, it empowers you.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is like I never want anyone to feel victimized or feel powerless, right? I always want you to feel, well, not victimized, a victim. I
Mhm.
always want you to feel empowered. I always want you to know that you have some agency, that you have some say so, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if
Yeah.
it doesn't present that way, just know that you do. And I think
Mhm.
that's the part of it. Like even if I can't change my circumstances, I can change how I respond.
Yeah.
You know
Facts.
what I mean? Like
And
if it's just
that
that.
was the most powerful thing to me as a person, as a human, and as a man,
Yeah.
and even as a man of color, because it, like, all of a sudden I just stopped getting in trouble. And I was like, yo, the reason you were getting in so much trouble because you were popping off to the cops. You were doing things. You were doing things to cause attention to yourself. And so literally, I just, like, it hit me. I
But
was like, oh,
but
yo,
that's a
that's
conversation
crazy.
a lot of people aren't willing to have though. And that's
Yeah,
why people don't grow. That's why they don't expand. Because we're not
100%.
introspective enough to keep it a buck with ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
100%.
yo,
I love that you said
I'm
that.
sensitive. I know I'm sensitive. And I had that conversation with myself. Purpose, you sensitive? I'm very sensitive, actually.
Pervis, I literally said that to myself yesterday because I've been experiencing so many emotions and so many things, and I just checked over. I stood back and I was like, "Yo, you're like so sensitive right now. Like, anything could put you into it. You can just cry at any moment,
Yeah.
or you can
Yes.
yell and scream, or you can completely start laughing and enjoy it. Like, you are
Yeah.
so, like, and then I had to say, like, what is it right now that I'm going through? And once I looked at my life, I saw it's like I'm living a lot of highs, but I'm
Hmm.
also experiencing a lot of lows with, like, with emotions like grief and
Hmm.
having to mourn and having to process a lot of people who have been
You're in
dying, whether
transition.
it's
Yeah. You're in
exactly. And so,
transition. Yeah.
and even at the time in my life, I just turned 40, so I now
Well, we
actually
look
think
good.
different.
We look good to be in our 40s. Praise
I know,
God.
right? I know,
We
we
look
doing our
great.
thing, right? But yo, no lie, I had to, like, I looked at Omar and I was like, yo, your priorities are actually different. Like, your
Yes.
values and the way that you actually interact is completely different. And I was like, that's crazy. I remember my homies telling me that something clicks, but now I get it. Like, something clicked. And
Oh my
suddenly
goodness.
my more of my interests are, I mean, I don't want to put the term man shit, but it's like I would say it was more like responsible, mature stuff, you know?
Hmm.
And so now I'm understanding that it's not manhood that I'm trying to live up to. It's just being responsible, accountable, and then very, very, very intentional about my living today. I don't got time for all that nonsense no more. Like, I don't.
Yeah. And then also
If
too, like flourishing within your purpose, right? And like that
Hmm.
excites you knowing that you're helping people. Like that becomes excitement for you. Like, yo, I get to be a vessel used to help someone's life change. Right. It's certain
Yeah,
things that used to excite you. Now you're like, yo, like I'm flourishing within my purpose. Most people don't even know why they're born, you know? And
yeah,
so for you
that's
to
true.
be able to know that, right, it's just gratitude. Like the things that I'm grateful for are a lot different than when I was in my
That is
30s and
100%.
20s. I'm grateful that my knees work, that my lower back ain't tripping. You know what I mean? Like that I can still run a
Yeah,
mile and not get winded. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
your gratitude gets it shifts, bro. It shifts.
It does. It does. But I love that you said that because it makes you see life a little bit more fully. And that's what I've
Yes.
learned. Whenever you're younger, you have a very idealistic viewpoint on what you think the world is. But when you
Bro,
become
you think about the number
older,
of summers, you think about the number of summers you got left. You thinking like you're like when you get
the
into your
impact.
40s, you like you thinking about impact and legacy. You
Yeah.
start really thinking about that more than anything.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we could talk about this all day, but let's keep it on the subject matter because we are wanting to give some people some
Yes.
ideas around what's happening. And don't get me wrong, everything y'all heard thus far, it is about that me time because me time
Yeah.
also means that you sit by yourself and you introspect. You take a list. Like I ain't gonna front. I have a list things that I do terribly and I put myself down for and I treat myself negatively about on this list right here.
Yeah.
And then I got a list things that I do amazingly and can also treat myself better.
Yeah.
And I take
Yeah.
time. And so what we're saying right now in this conversation is that you must be accountable, you must introspect, and you must question who am I? Why am I? And these two questions are the most powerful. Go ahead.
And might I add, ask it out of curiosity, not shame. And I
Exactly.
think
Ooh,
that
man.
I think that's the key, right? And I think that's why people don't introspect because it's usually through a judgmental lens
Yeah,
instead of a
completely.
curious lens, right?
Yep.
Because I ask
Yep.
myself questions all the time. Purpose, why did you act that way? Why did you react that way? What's going on?
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then that one I'm more open to exploring rather than what, yo, what's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
negative self-talk.
Like
I'm
you
gonna
did
shut
it
down.
again. Like, look at
You
you.
did it again. I'm gonna shut down even within myself, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, the point of introspection is for you to take a deep dive into self, an open self, not a closed self.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you said that because with the curious mind, all things can be figured out. But with the closed mind, you shut the door. Like you literally can't go no further. Like it's done. It's
And a
closed.
judgmental mind is paralyzing.
It surely is. It cripples you in your place. Like,
Yeah.
and I actually recognize that about myself a lot. And we'll move on after this, but I recognize how many small judgments that I had about my fiance and my kids by being in this space with them, like in COVID and having to be in this tight. And it hit me. I was like, yo, you really like controlling with the thoughts that you think that they should be having. Like, why don't you let them do them, yo? Like, why you judging? And
Hmm.
then and it's so subtle, right? Like it just goes
Yeah.
right, like, oh, I can't believe she did that, or why my son do that, or oh my God, what am I? And so I was like, yo, if you're judging them that way, what you doing to you, homie? Like,
Yeah.
and once again, I have to bring it back to like,
Yeah.
yo, you're judging yourself about everything. You picking up the pot wrong, you washing dishes too hard, you talking to people too loud, you doing, and it's like all negative. And I'm just like, yo, you really got to curb this. And for
Yeah.
all of you out there, just because you become aware and enlightened doesn't mean that these thoughts are going to happen. They're not going to happen because
Yeah.
they still do. I just check them faster. Now I'm more like, yo, don't do that. Don't think that way. Change that. Be more positive. In fact, go embrace that and do the opposite feeling of what you're talking about right now because you need to bring that in. And so, and that's another beautiful thing is that whenever you really get to control what you choose to feel by changing your
Yeah.
mindset. So keep an open mind, y'all. The next thing that I really want to understand from you, my brother, as I'm
Hmm.
pulling up my questions, and this is more of a just a advice for people out there because right now everybody is moving away from this concept or maybe even still trying to hold on to this work life balance idea
Hmm.
when work and life are now integrated. And
Hmm.
so how have you managed the integration process? I mean, you necessarily weren't always in the office, but you did say that you're an introvert, I mean extrovert, and you were moving around a lot. So now,
Yeah.
how have you integrated that? Or I don't want to use the word balance, but how have you integrated work and
How have I
life?
integrated work in life? Um, that's a very good question. I haven't even really thought about that, but I seem to have done it. Um, um, so like say I have a talk at 9 o'clock, right? At 9 o'clock in the morning. And after that, I always reward myself because I feel like the session went really well, or the talk went really well, whatever it is. I'll go to my friend's bakery and I'll hang out there for like an hour or two. Eat some cookies, talk, do whatever. Then if I have a client at 2, I'll get back in time for the 2 o'clock. You know what I mean? So like I just found these pockets of free time. And even if
Mm.
I want to watch SpongeBob, even if I want to watch something on Netflix, like I'm gonna do something that makes Purvis feel like Purvis,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I find pockets to do that. And I'm grateful that I've afforded the opportunity, and I've also struggled and I've also suffered. But in being an entrepreneur, I have a little bit more freedom and flexibility than the average
hmm,
person. So I do recognize that, and I know that everyone can't do that per se.
yeah,
Um, but I do think that I do think now the work structure can provide spaces for that, though. Those
yeah,
pockets
yeah,
of
100%.
retreatment, right? Where you can retreat and plug into who you are, and then go back and do
Yeah,
what you need to do.
and I love that you said that, and especially whenever you put it back into the workspace or the corporation, because there is agency to give your employee freedom to feel as if their life is being lived versus they're
Yes,
working through life, and they
yes,
resent the fact that they're working for you because they have no time for themselves.
I
And
love that. I love how you just phrased that because I think when you do the first one, and I say, so how did you say it the first time? I don't want to flub it.
if you're working through life, oh wait, I don't
Work.
even know. Wait a It says that I don't even know what I said. Hold on, what did I say?
It was beautiful.
If you are working, if you are living life and working technically versus working through
In-
life, like and you're just only
Yeah, yeah,
working
yeah,
for life.
yeah, yeah. So like the first one, I feel yields more productivity
Yes, one
to
hundred
me
percent.
for a corporate, for a corporation, because I'm thinking like if that person is living their life and working,
Yeah,
you're going to get more out of them because they recognize they don't feel the pressure, they don't feel I think a lot of people feel in people that I've coached and worked with, a lot of corporate employees in the past, and I know things have shifted now, so I want to be very careful with that. Some people have felt like they felt very like they were slaves,
one
like they had to,
hundred percent.
or they never, or it's like even when they got off work, they still had work to do. The work emails
Yep,
were still coming, the phone
yep,
calls, you know what I mean, the meeting by tomorrow, and it's like you have no time
yep,
for your family, you have no time for yourself, you have no time for your dreams,
yep,
your passions, all those things like that.
yep.
So if you recognize that I'm working and I still have a life, that aspect of it going into it is just, it yields different results because it's a different perspective.
But I can actually second that because I've spoken to and worked with many corporate employees even before COVID. Whenever all my medical and sports rehab massage therapy patients were corporate,
Hmm.
and even then they're like, "Yo, I went in, I got off, I came here, I'm going to dinner, I'm going home, I'm going in, I got off, I'm probably gonna try to meet with some friends, I'm going home." And it's like, but what about during the day? Like, what does it look like? And to be honest, they waste time. And that was the thing that really tripped me out. I was like, so what does like your actual workday look like? And they're like, well, I probably spend about 3 hours just like reading dumb stuff or on Facebook or just like getting lost in a scroll or doing something that has nothing to do with my productivity. And I was like, isn't that cool that you can actually be doing something for yourself in that time, but still
Yeah.
somehow get the work done that you need to get done? And then
Yeah.
that would shift even the concept of what we think a work day looks like. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, go ahead.
And it's funny, I think it's even more complex now because, due to COVID, the place where it was like the place that we retreated to, our homes have now, our sanctuaries have become our prisons. So it's like, where do you retreat to from your own house?
Yeah,
So it's like
exactly.
that. that has become, like a very huge problem for a lot of people, especially a
No.
lot of people that I've worked with and coached. So like you have those, you have the playlist, like create a playlist, like songs that make you feel good.
Yeah.
Like it's certain things that we can do to make
Yeah.
us feel like ourselves,
Yeah.
even
And
in
that's
that
kind of the
space.
next thing. Yeah, I agree. And that's the next thing we want to touch on. Um, just like what routines that you have done to, I want to talk about this in two ways.
Okay.
What routines have you done to keep your sanity during this time?
Mhm.
And what routines have you found to keep you more grounded?
Well, I think both of them are the same. Like, I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely, I definitely think like every day for me is prayer. Every day for me is finding listening to some good music and working
Hmm.
out, exercising. Those three things, right? They've kept me grounded and they kept me feeling like myself.
Yeah.
Um, and also just community, like always having those lifelines in place, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's
Yeah.
I think that's really like the foundation, right? Just having lifelines, and
Yeah.
knowing those lifelines are and being able to call upon them. And so, like, I have several group, friend group texts where we just checking, y'all good?
Yeah.
Which I need me to pray for, like who's sick, who's family
Word,
member, you
word.
know what I mean? Like, but just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
being in community has
It's
been such
huge.
a saving grace for me.
I can agree with that as well. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I have so many group texts. I didn't have group texts before COVID. I wouldn't have such
I ain't
like a group
either.
text would annoy me back then.
Bro,
But now,
same for me. Same for me. Now I'm like, I live for it. I'm like, word.
yeah, yeah. I got so many. It's funny. I was actually having a conversation with my nieces and my nephew, and they were like, "Yo, add Aunt Stephanie into the group." I'm like, "That's another group text. This is for us right here. Like, she can come into the other one. Like, this is uncle, nieces, and nephew, and then we'll
Yes.
do that. And then we got the cousins, and then we got all these other people, and we got even one with our men's group and one with Mike. And so it's like I live for them now because they do. And for those of you who have been isolated, and I know that there's a lot of people out there right now who are in corporate
Yeah.
spaces or maybe even not, and you've completely been isolated by this, no matter what the circumstances of family conditions, like no matter what it is, please find yourself at least two people to communicate with. Like, find some community. I'm sure there's someone who is thinking about you and that you are thinking about. So just reach out and just
I'm
give it
happy you said that.
all. Yeah, and just do it. Like, sometimes we be isolating ourselves so much that we just say, look, I don't feel like talking to nobody right now. But that's actually the thing that we need the most. Your habits will drown you if you let them. And this isolation has been a habit. It takes a habit 2 to 3 weeks. We've been in this bad boy for 2 years. So our habits are definitely in this form of isolation. So please, by all means, reach out. With that said, there's another question that has a lot of importance to me.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you, as a man of color, you can really, really relate to this and feel strongly about it. But what advice would you give your younger self?
That's a lot. Save your money. Save your money. um, I would say go to therapy sooner
Mm,
and save your money, go to therapy sooner, and don't care what people think about you.
hmm. Wow, that's real. And I for so long knew, well, now understand the reason that I do what I do, especially when it comes to the work that I do with young men or men in general. It's only because of that question. And
Yeah.
I look back and think about how I wish that I had somebody like myself to influence me when I was their age. And so it's like a two-part
Bro.
question where I'm talking to myself, but I'm also reflecting back to my younger self, and I'm giving all that I am to these young boys because I see so much of me in them. And I realize that they are an opportunity to speak to my younger self, to right some
Absolutely.
rights. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. And that's always is always selfish, right? For me to begin. Every time I help a young man
Yeah,
or a man in general, I'm healing myself. I'm making
100%.
up for the healing that I didn't have when I was younger, or didn't have the wherewithal or even the knowledge, right, to even articulate that I was hurting, that I was in pain, right? I just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, yeah.
know. You know what I mean? Like I just wasn't even aware to it. So the fact that that I've now become a person who's been a healer in a lot of men of color's lives, it's something that it does something for me to that younger Purvis who would sit in his closet and cry
Yeah,
and who would just
exactly.
think that he wasn't worth anything. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, so it
Exactly.
builds that person up because that young child needs to flourish as well.
100%. And that was my healing. Helping my inner child was huge for me. But we got one more question, but then we're going to let everybody know what to reach you. But the last question, specifically for those that you work with who maybe, or specifically for people out there who maybe
Mhm,
just like the clients you work with,
mhm.
what would you give? What information or advice would you give an employee that's feeling burnt out?
Ooh, ooh. Um, so one of the things I would say, and we talked about this a lot, is the introspection, right? You have to know
Hmm.
self. And so you feel when you're starting to trip. You feel when you're starting to go down a path, right?
Hmm.
My thing is to catch it before it happens. Now,
Yep.
catching it before it happens means that you have to have a plan in place,
Yes.
right? So a plan has to be
100%.
constructed, right? A plan has to be
Yeah.
constructed. So you need to know who your lifelines are. You need to know, and within lifelines, that needs to be a therapist, someone that's helping you. What is a wellness practice that you are engaged in? What is what is a community that you're involved in? What are other activities? What are things that are already in place? What is in your wellness toolkit? Because you got to have one. Because everybody, rich, poor, is a candidate for burnout if we don't catch it, right? And so
Facts.
that's the thing. Like, and also too, having the agency to articulate where you are,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
I think burnout happens because we're afraid to even articulate that we're stressed out because we're afraid.
Yeah. But that goes back to some of the things that came up specifically within the corporate culture, and that literally plays on the aspect of people are afraid because if they do speak about these things in corporate
They're
culture,
gonna
then
lose their
you're looked at
job.
a
They're
certain
gonna,
way, and
or
you're
you
going to
could
get
lose your job.
fired.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah,
you're not good enough to be on this team, and so people just suck it up. But that's not the
yeah.
way. Transparency and understanding is the way, and empathy, even from the managers. You need to have empathy for your lower level employees. And again, I hate that term lower level because they're not lower level, they're human, they just happen to have a position.
Position that is at a, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
exactly. And so but yeah, man, that was huge, and I hope that you all heard what he just said because that was really powerful. um those things are not only, I just have to go back to the self accountability and knowing thyself. You have to know and have to be in order to articulate, just to pinpoint what Pervis said, in order to articulate how you feel to the world, you have to know how you feel and what's going on with you. And that comes with your entire lifetime and your entire perception and everything that's ever happened to you. So you take all that information and you look at it, and it may not be comfortable, but you got to look at
But
it.
it's not even going to be comfortable communicating it initially.
Yeah,
Like it's not
exactly.
going to be
Exactly.
comfortable, but it takes a lot of bravery and also you just knowing that your voice matters, right? And
Yeah.
knowing that you're choosing you, right? And
Yep.
admitting that
Yep.
you're heading on a path of burnout, you're choosing yourself. And so like you are always a great choice.
I love that. I'm gonna start using that. You are
Yeah.
always a great choice, and that's a fact. With that said, this has been a great conversation, a great topic. Purpose is always dropping gems. But before we leave, how can people stay connected with you on social media, website? Drop it on them real quick.
Oh, brother, this has been a wonderful interview. So thank you firstly for that.
Yeah.
You can follow me at Pervis Taylor on all social media platforms, and my website is pervistaylor.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Purpose. It was a pleasure. And once again, for all of you out there, you may have to replay this because there's some gems here. And let's stay tuned for the next show. We're just gonna kick it and we're just gonna get out of here because I think at this point, it's been a really, really, really fast beginning to this year. And I'm
Yes.
gonna take this day and I'm gonna rest and have some me time. That's what I'm gonna go do. But with that,
Same.
once again, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Pervis. Thank you, all the Crash Bell team who's making this happen. With that, until next time, y'all. Be blessed.